In this video, we have Josiah 𝗰𝗶𝗶𝗹 or Bacon Bagel, whichever one you want to call him. Here with us today, he has been doing eBay to Amazon for a very long time now. He also has a thriving Turo business. And I'm curious to hear the updates as well, because they are working on their own website to actually rent out cars. So Josiah, do you want to give us like a little background as to like how you even got started with like being self-employed and running businesses in the first place?
Sure. Yeah. Growing up, I dabbled with reselling things on eBay, kind of the occasional thrift store flip. So my parents did that kind of stuff on and off here and there. So I kind of picked up a little bit of that. Went off to college, got an engineering degree, and joined the military. Was an officer in the Army for a little while. That brought us, my wife and I, from the East Coast all the way up to Alaska for that military service, and just fell in love with Alaska and up here, and was ready to do something else besides the military. It was a great experience, learned and grew a lot through it, but was ready for something else. So I was looking at kind of my different options and had kind of, this is the date that I'm going to be out of the military. I need to find something else to do to provide financially for ourselves here in Alaska. And kind of looking at a lot of the different career options I could have gone, I realized some of the things I don't like about the military are also in those industries as well. Some of the corporate politics, or the being stuck in the structure of, a 40 or 50-hour work week, wasn't exactly what we desired for ourselves. So started looking into entrepreneurship, different businesses, and had lots of ideas going back and forth between my wife and I. Tried a couple different things that didn't quite stick in that last year in the military as we were getting something set up, and finally selling used books on Amazon was the one that stuck, and started out, spent a lot of time learning that model, using the 𝗬𝗏 and absorbing lots from guys like Avery Romer and Caleb Roth and a lot of those other OG book guys that are on YouTube, 𝗰cie, and that transitioned into kind of, I don't have enough time to scale this the way I want, just cherry picking used books. So moved into kind of an online arbitrage space and dabbled with that a little bit, as well as retail arbitrage, and eventually found my way, similarly to Seth, into the flipping from eBay to Amazon, which is kind of a niche within OA. And that's done really well for us since 2021, I think. Does that sound about right, Seth?
Yeah, I think we met at Miami 2022, and you had been doing it solidly, I think, for around a year at that point, right? I think.
Yeah. I think in 2021 I started the kind of stumbled upon flipping from eBay to Amazon, and then in 2022 added in the prep center aspect, and kind of went
for you. Yeah,
that was huge.
And it's like you didn't do it prematurely either. Like it was time for you. Like some people, they just do prep center right from the start, and then they just lose everything and like nothing works out. But you did it the right way. You kind of like already had a business model in place, and you're just like, prepping items takes too long. Like it's time to scale up.
Yeah. And I was doing mostly merchant fulfilled back then, because maybe my analysis was off a little, but shipping wise, it seemed like that was the better option for me coming from Alaska, because I can't get some of the reduced partnership rates to send into FBA warehouses. So and it ended up being, on days when I had a lot of inventory, I was spending hours just packaging and shipping stuff. It's like, this isn't the most lucrative use of my time.
Yeah. And so didn't you even start eBay to Amazon? I think you were doing like retail arbitrage, and you came across some extremely good, like massively discounted, like clearance deals that were at multiple stores. And like, is that kind of how you had the idea to do eBay to Amazon, or like what kind of started that?
Yeah, yeah. I think the exact product it started with was I found a local store in town. I was doing some retail arbitrage, and I found their back dusty clearance room. And I found these higher end massagers, like massage guns.
Oh, you found those retail arbitrage?
I think it's a different one than what you're thinking of.
Okay.
This is the one that got me into massagers years and years ago. And I think that brand is since kind of, I'll tell you about later.
Okay.
But I think I got them like 90% off retail because they'd been sitting in this dusty corner for a long time. And I got, I think, 2 cartloads worth of them. And they sold quick and for a high price. We're talking like I paid maybe $20, $30, and I was selling them for $200, $300, like
That's
within a
disgusting.
week. It
Yeah.
was disgusting. And the only problem was I couldn't find more. Like I bought out that store. And so then I started Googling. I was like, can I get more of these somewhere? And part of why they were so lucrative was I definitely was selling them for above MSRP. Because they weren't quite discontinued, but they were a little harder to find. Like the supply wasn't there. It
It
might
was
have
like
helped.
spotty supply, basically.
Yeah, yeah. I think this was kind of this might have been in end of 2020 or beginning of 2021 with a lot of pandemic stuff going on. And
Yeah.
so there definitely was, people couldn't go get their normal chiropractic or massage care or go to the gym. And so people were investing in some of those things for themselves. So there was an increased demand in certain categories like that one. Anyway, I was having trouble finding them. Found some directly from the manufacturer, and eventually that supply dried up, and found my way to eBay and found some there as well. So it kind of, was how can I find more of these? And with discontinued products, the only other place usually is eBay.
Yeah. And so you were probably doing, so like as you started to take advantage of that opportunity from eBay to Amazon, were you also taking advantage of that opportunity while also doing retail arbitrage like you were before? Or as that started working, did you start to say like, okay, there's other models of this brand or other similar items, and I'm starting to go, okay, now I'm 40% eBay to Amazon and 60% retail arbitrage, and oh, now I'm 50-50, and now I'm 60% eBay to Amazon as you found more stuff? Is that kind of how it worked? Or were you just like, these massage guns like were working, I need to find other opportunities like this immediately?
Yeah, it's a little bit like that. I transitioned away from books somewhere in that. I can't remember the exact timeline, but I stopped adding books to the inventory because I was seeing this retail arbitrage and online arbitrage kind of stuff. I can get a much quicker return. Books are a little slower. And right now I'm kind of low on cash. I need quicker flips. And so I started shifting my strategy that way. And retail arbitrage was the quickest way for me to get new inventory and sell it. Because I'd get it, I'd spend all day running to, say, every Walmart in town. And then I'd get home and I'd list it all merchant fulfilled. And then I'd wake up the next morning and a bunch of it would be sold already. You can't really beat that turnaround.
Yeah.
And that was really helpful as I was growing the capital in the business. And then I took a lot of those retail arbitrage leads that I found, and I said, okay, this one sold really well. How can I get more? And I'd start searching those on eBay, and I'd oftentimes find a pretty decent supply there. So kind of the retail arbitrage would help me find leads that I could use on eBay. And then also the second part of that strategy is the eBay sellers that I found that had those leads in quantity. I'd start going through their entire storefront and see what else. If this seller has 20 units of this thing that I'm able to sell really well, I bet they have other good stuff too. And so I'd spend I had my VA mostly scrubbing through these eBay storefronts using tactical arbitrage, and found lots of other kind of rabbit trail leads that way. And then at some point, I started getting a little more organized and creating a replenishable spreadsheet, and tracking my spending and my profits and all that a lot better. That took longer than it should have to start tracking all the data behind the business.
Yeah. Well, I mean, once you have the right products, everything else kind of can fall into place. There's a couple of different directions we could go from that. Like number one, I know for me, for personal experience, the first several years of selling on Amazon, I didn't touch merch fulfilled whatsoever. I was all FBA. I had it in my head that merch fulfilled was this second tier of Amazon. The people who didn't want to be efficient did merch fulfilled. The people who didn't care about their time did merch fulfilled. That it was basically being an eBay seller. And now, for context, I do all merch fulfilled now, and Josiah doesn't do merch fulfilled anymore. But the thing about it is you don't have to send your items into Amazon FBA, which sometimes it takes as little as a week, but sometimes it could take up to a month. And then there's FC transfers, which sometimes take we've seen them take over a month before for FC transfers. Not usually.
I had some last year that were they were stuck in a inbound status. They had been received at the warehouse, and I contacted Amazon. They said they were just sitting in a tractor trailer waiting to get opened. And they sat there for, I think it was 2 or 3 months. It was dumb.
Was it that product that we are both on, those thermometer things?
I think it was that one, and I had I'd done a pretty good price, and I had a pretty high quantity, so it was a pretty lucrative lead that was just sitting there. Ended up turning out good in the end, but it was just frustrating to have to wait that many weeks. If I had merchant fulfilled, shoot, they would have been sold before Amazon had even received the package in their trailer. Yeah,
and it's the trade-off there is even though it took longer for them to sell for Josiah, his hourly was still much better than someone who would have been merch fulfilling, because at the same time I was merch fulfilling these because I was just in go mode. But I was having to prep all these items because I wasn't using a prep center. Josiah was using a prep center, and he was FBAing. Yes, it took longer for them to check in, but his hourly rate was probably in the thousands, whereas mine was I was making money, but it was an hourly rate for sure. So yeah, if you can get yourself to do some merch fulfilled, especially when you're short on capital, that's a big deal, because literally if you find a hot item like this, these would sell within a day or two, sometimes hours or two of them getting checked in or listed. And so merch fulfilled, you literally, if you're doing online arbitrage, you get the package at your front door, you list it, it could literally be sold by the next morning. And then you get paid in, 2 weeks, I think.
Yeah, around 2 weeks, yeah.
Something like that. So that's a great way to turn the capital a lot better if you have the time to do that. Yeah. And what were you going to say?
Yeah, it's felt weird the last few months. I have some remnants of merchant fulfilled things that I should list and sell. I've had my store on vacation mode since January, I think. For merchant fulfilled. That's weird. Since I started selling seriously on Amazon, I've always had a little bit of something. merchant fulfilled. I've always had a shipping station set up, and maybe I'll go a week or two without selling anything, and then 1 week I'll sell 10 or 15 things that I'll ship out. I don't even know where my shipping stuff is right now because we moved. And Amazon actually emails me every now and then. They're like, hey, your store is still on vacation mode. We would really like it if you turned that off.
Exactly. Yeah, they send it to me because I turned Canada and Mexico on vacation mode because I was sick of shipping to their merch fulfilled, and they send me emails there too. So yeah, I don't like sending international, but
I think part of what you're getting at is every business structure and business plan, business method is a little different for each person. We all have our own desires and goals, or our own capital constraints or time constraints. And it's okay to be doing something different than what you see somebody else in the space or somebody on YouTube talking about. A prep center doesn't work for everybody, or maybe it's a great end goal, but you're not ready for that. Maybe merchant fulfilling would be good for you to grow your capital, but you don't have the time to be shipping 30 items a day. And so doing FBA is a better option for you in that moment. And I think that's how it's kind of worked for both of us. Our methods and strategies have shifted and changed over the last few years.
And speaking of that, you've kind of transitioned to focus a bit more on Turo, especially as it's the summer. For those who don't know, Turo is a rental car company. You've been interesting tax strategy, not financial advice, but it's been working good for you. A lot of your profits over the last couple of years, you've been pouring into cars that you then list on Turo that you then make more money off of. And then you basically push that tax burden further into the future, right? Is that basically how it works? Because you are going to have taxes on it when you sell the car for a profit.
Definitely. Yeah, each vehicle that we've purchased, you're able to write off as I think it's a section 179 in the tax code. And President Trump changed a few things to stimulate the economy, in that for a couple of years you were able to write off 100% of the vehicle purchase price the year you bought it. So we've been doing that for a couple of years. I think the last 3 years I've purchased a car on December 31st to add to our fleet after looking at our books and thinking, I
don't want to pay taxes on that much.
Yeah. So side note, dealerships are pretty motivated. If you go in 2 hours before they close on December 31st, quick transactions. They don't play games. The negotiations quicker and all that. That's that's an interesting strategy. Everybody wants to go home and they want to be done for the year, but they'd also like to squeeze one more sale in for the year. So
are you able to lowball a little bit more, or is that how it works?
I think you can a little bit. Yeah. This
$500 on.
Yeah. This last year I purchased one. I didn't even call them, or I might have called them earlier that week to see if the car I was interested in was still there. And then I walked in 2 hours before they closed, asked to take it on a test drive, and gave the guy an offer. I think they were asking $14,000, and I offered 12. And he went to the other room to talk to his manager, whatever that actually means. And he came right back and he was like, deal. I was like, oh, that's weird. I should have offered less, I guess. He didn't even counter me. And I was satisfied with the price I paid, and that was probably one of the quickest transactions I've ever had. I forget what your question was.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about how how your life values come out in your business, and how you transition, and how you focus on certain things and not focus on other things, and how you've transitioned to a lot of what you're doing at this point, I don't know what the percentage breakdown is, but it's the summer there and you're doing a lot of rental cars at the moment. So how's that been going?
Yeah. Okay. It in part started out being a great write-off to offset some of our Amazon profits. And now we're to the point we have a dozen vehicles and we're working to scale it to something that could provide like a second full-time income for ourselves, as well as be like a standalone business that runs itself. Right now, we still spend a lot of time. I'm the main guy to make sure maintenance is done, whether that's me doing the maintenance myself or driving it to a shop and tracking all that. Most of the other stuff outside of some computer work, we've been able to outsource to team members and employees, cleaning the vehicles. We're working on outsourcing a lot of the customer service aspects right now. And so one of the downsides to an Amazon business, especially when you're doing an arbitrage model, is you don't have a business that you can sell. You're kind of just working for yourself. And at the end of the day, it can be really lucrative. You can make a lot of money. But you don't have a business that you could necessarily sell to someone else. You don't have, say, a private label brand or some really unique processes. And you're also on Amazon's platform and you're stuck playing their games with their rules and their always increasing expenses, etc. And we were kind of in the same situation on Turo. We're using their marketplace. We're following their rules. As expenses change or rules change, they may or may not benefit us, and we have no say in the matter. So we're working to transition off of Turo. We have our own standalone website now, which has taken more work than we expected. And for the time being, the goal is to use Turo and our own website kind of side by side, and to help keep our calendars filled. But yeah, July is historically the busiest travel season for Alaska. Generally, we have the nicer weather, lots of fish coming in. It's just peak demand for people to come in. So the amount of people trying to come and the prices you can get for renting a vehicle out are at an all-time high. So we're enjoying that, making sure our vehicles are in good shape. If somebody complains about something, got to go take care of it real quick because don't want to miss out on the rental next week. That could be, another $800,000 rental.
Yeah. So for context, what did numbers end up with Turo last year, like the full calendar year in profit? Do you happen to remember?
Revenue wise, it was over $100,000. I could look it up right now. I think maybe almost 120. 112,000. Yeah. And so yeah, for context, like July of last year, we did about $25,000. So that kind of tells you how that summer season is compared to the rest of the months. Maybe like some people selling on Amazon, Q4 they do 30% of their yearly sales or whatever.
I don't understand doing that much of your sales in Q4. Like I feel like neither of us. I think I don't know about you, but it felt like for both of us, we kind of like had icing on top Q4s most of the time, where it was like a lot of icing on top Q4s.
Yeah, I like the steadier numbers throughout the year, and then maybe a little bump at certain seasons. That's what I prefer. Yeah, a lot of those people that they hit 100% more than their average month in December. Look at their January or February numbers, and it's like 50% decrease from their average. And it's like, what's going on there?
They just spent the whole month dealing with like liquidation and stuff.
Yeah.
Which I feel that I had to do that, honestly. Not the whole month, that's for sure, but I had to deal with it.
Yeah, some of those January returns are a little they're
Demoted.
sad. You're coming off this high, and then sales are declining, and you're getting hit with a bunch of returns.
Yeah. Yeah. But like with Turo though, it is very seasonal, especially where you're at. And so like how does it feel like this year would probably turn out?
Yeah, the market around us every year, we start in 2021, and every year the market has gone down a little bit as far as pricing. And I'm not surprised by that or worried by that at all. I think nationally there was some interesting stuff going on during the pandemic, 2020 especially. Nobody was really traveling. And you can look up historically, a lot of the big rental car companies had to dump a big portion of their fleet, just because they couldn't hold all those cars because there was no more. The demand was just disappeared. So years after that, when travel started back up, in some places travel came back with a vengeance, because people didn't travel for a year, they were cooped up, and all of a sudden there was increased above the usual amount of travel for a year or two. Maybe some still today. I haven't followed that as much as I could. And I think, especially here in Alaska, with how seasonal it is, the car market is still stabilizing itself after that. So our June revenue this year was down a little bit as compared to June last year. And a couple of things tying into that. I think our daily rates that we're able to get are down a little bit because of changes in the market. And we changed our pricing strategy and things a little bit as we transitioned to our own website. We didn't want to fully book our whole summer up before we got our website live. Right. Yeah. So we missed out on some potentially more lucrative bookings because we didn't allow people to book as far in advance. Like say last year in February or March, we were starting to get June, July, August bookings. And some of those were our most lucrative bookings. They were longer and higher dollar amount. This year, we've been opening our calendar a couple weeks to a month in advance.
And so a lot of that's because of the new website and trying to like figure out how to do those two things together and like how to work it all together.
Yeah. We want to leave the calendar open in some ways so we can start getting some action on our website.
Yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, it's a lot easier to like have those like massive bookings, but also like it might have to just be that like one little step back so that like the years to come in your website, you can be actually getting a lot of bookings and knowing what's going on with your own website.
Yeah. It's been a lot of work to transition to that. And at some weeks it's felt discouraging. So it's like, it feels like we're taking a step back. Like we're getting less revenue and we're working harder. But it's Kelly, my wife, has been really good at reminding me, like, this is about the long-term benefits. Like,
like sellability.
Yeah. And we don't have like strong goals of like, we're going to build this to be something we can sell. But that's definitely in the back of my mind, as that's nice that if we build this the right way, there could be an exit option in the future. But also it'd be really good to have a sustainable business that we have full control over. We're not at the whims of an Amazon or a Turo marketplace, and we can make all the rules. And so looking forward to that and the benefits of that.
Yeah, I think we both read Millionaire Fastlane recently. Mixed thoughts. I think we both had mixed thoughts on that. But one framework that I appreciated was, I think it was like the sense framework on like what a business should be in order for it to be very profitable and like kind of therefore fast lane. And one of them is the control. And like I was like running Amazon through that spectrum. I think there was a lot of different, I don't remember all of the different aspects of it, but control was one where Amazon was just like, man, like we have some control, but the control honestly isn't that good. Like that's like, yes, it's very scalable. We can sell to everyone in the United States. Like it can be disconnected from our efforts and our time, which is great if you have a team and systems. But it's hard to build all those systems and have so little control sometimes. So that's like, if you're going to be an Amazon sandbox, you just have to understand the game that you kind of don't have as much control as other businesses. And you have to just take the pros and hopefully they outweigh the cons. And if they don't, you go do something else, or you transition to something else, or you keep it in as a certain part of your business, and then look to diversify. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was actually, I haven't finished the book yet, but I was listening, I got on Audible listening to some of it this morning, actually. So it's funny you mentioned that. I kind of forgot about it for a couple weeks and remembered it earlier today. Yeah, I think if you want to be really pessimistic and negative about it, in some ways as sellers on Amazon, not having some sort of private label brand that we're building, we're kind of a glorified 1099 contractor for Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
He dictates the rules and the boundaries as to how we can operate. And then depending on how well we do or don't do that job, we get compensated through their systems, and they have full control. And yeah, I mean, we get a 1099 at the end of the year, right?
Yeah, don't we?
So yeah, there's pros and cons to that. I think one big pro that's benefited both of us is with a system like that, the barrier to entry is actually pretty low. And you can start really small, really part-time, and grow it to what you want it to be. And you can, at least the way that we've mostly used it, we've used it as a way to provide for ourselves, like pretty financially well, and now also start investing into other business opportunities that, Lord willing, will be bigger than the different Amazon things we've done in the past.
Yeah, you can be really pessimistic about it, or you can be like, well, like, look, if you play the game right, like you can kind of set yourself up really well financially. Like, no, you're not going to get to 100 million doing Amazon FBA. And you're not going to be like pulling out of that Lambo in Miami that's actually yours. Like, no, you're going to be leasing that thing. But, but
it's still pretty cool.
It's still pretty cool if you want to drop, like, I don't know how much that is. What is that even? Like, if you were to lease a Lamborghini for like a month, like, could you do it for like $5,000 a month if you just wanted to drop a stupid $5,000 on a thing like that? I guess I don't know how much a month that would be.
I don't know. In a place like Miami, it's probably
more.
Not too bad because there's so many of them. Interestingly, there's a guy up here in Anchorage that just started this summer renting out his Lamborghini. For one, there's not many Lamborghinis in Alaska.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever even seen one on the streets. Maybe he has the only one. I don't know. And I think he's actually getting it rented out, but he's charging $1,000 for a full day, or if you do a partial day, like $600 or $700.
Is there a discount if you do multiple days? Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So
you could drop $30,000 a month on you could, like, if you wanted to just spend your $30,000 profit months on Lamborghinis, you could make $30,000 profit on Amazon. I mean, I did in December.
Yep.
But like, you're not going to get to 100 million with it. But But yeah, like what's the state of Amazon been for you recently? Like last like 12 months or so?
Yeah, last calendar year, 2023, we had our best year yet. I think we finished with close to 1.2 million in sales. Really hit a high peak towards the end of the year, Q4, kind of culminating, and we didn't necessarily work harder to boost our Q4 stuff, but we tweaked some of our strategies to make things more profitable. And if you looked at our revenue throughout the year, I think we started beginning of the year, our average sales were maybe in the 60 to 70K range. And by the end of the year, we were really steady in the 100 to 120K range. But then if you dig into the sheets, our profit really increased there towards the end of the year. Like I think, I think we did about 30K profit in December, and then January was in the 20s as well.
Yeah.
So really finished at a high point for the year. And then for a number of different reasons, didn't pay as much attention beginning of this calendar year, 2024. One was pulled a bunch of cash out in order to purchase a home, which is super exciting. Two, spent a month on vacation and wasn't as focused on working.
Oh yeah, the whole Hawaii. Yeah. Second year running, right?
Yeah, that was a blast. And kind of the third thing was kind of trying to figure out how much money we wanted tied up in Amazon's control. Lots of Section 3s and other rumors and problems with people getting their accounts deactivated. We had a scare or two somewhere in there with made maybe a couple too risky decisions on different brands to try to sell. And so we kind of let things decline a little bit. And for most of this year, that's July now. Actually, I just got my first half of the year profit analysis back from the bookkeeper. And I've been feeling a little down about it because it feels like we're not doing as well as last year. But dude, Seth, I think we're around 100K profit for the year, and I feel kind of sad about that.
That's so funny. Like 2-3 years ago, you would have been like completely stoked, and now it's just like, what? Like,
yeah,
it's just like that. That's just like testament to. It's just testament to if you stick with something and keep going from step 1 to step 2, you can like really grow, and like suddenly your like plan B and plan C are making. We can take a second if you need to, but
yeah, thanks.
yeah, go ahead. I'll just talk, and you can be back when you need to. But it's just testament to like if you level up and like go from step 1 to step 2 to step 26 to step 27 over the course of several years, you're going to be able to actually like have your plan B and C. Like, why is my plan B and C making me like only 120K a year? So yeah, that's just testament to that. I don't know if you were able to hear any of that, but it's like plan B and plan C, like probably your plan, like if you had to, like everything went wrong, everything went terrible, your plan G would be to sell on eBay and make 70K a year at this point. Like that's how it goes when you level up and keep like improving things.
Yeah. So things have been like overall still really good. I just pulled up. We're around like 370 grand sales for the year so far, which is lower than last year. I think in general our profit margins are a good bit better though, and we've had less capital tied up in that business, stuck in inventory that Amazon controls or things like that. This is an interesting aside. We were talking about prep centers earlier. One downside to prep centers, I think almost every prep center I've been at some point, they have ups and downs in their staffing or different random struggles. And every now and then I'll be like, man, my sales are really down this month. Like, what is going on? Because my spend last month was good. And I think it was like really similar products as to previous months. And then, so I dug in a week or two ago and I was like, I got a lot of stuff just like moving really slow at the prep center. And so I contacted them and I kind of feel for them. They said USPS got frustrated with them and said they won't deliver to the prep center anymore. It's just like too much volume. And so now my prep center that I'm using has to go to the post office to pick up stuff. And they were, it like took them a little bit to figure out the logistics of that, right? So they were doing like 2 trips a week to the post office, and that obviously like really slows my stuff down. Adds in a couple days right there. So I had a chat with them, and I think they're now going to the post office every day because they understand that like that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And so,
there's a lot of other choices.
Yeah. And I, kind of sucks, but that's part of the system we were talking about. Sometimes FC transfers or inbound check-ins take way longer than you expected. So you got to be able to handle that delay financially. And I think for me, sometimes it's like a mental, emotional, like aggravation. It's like, wow, I feel like I'm failing,
Failing just 100K at July. Or Josiah.
Kind of poor. Yeah.
Poor. Well, I think we've talked about this. We've talked about this on multiple occasions over the last couple of years about how our businesses, like for whatever reason, if like, let's say like, I'm anxious as not as usual, but as often I am about like account health safety, or like Josiah's gonna go buy a house and like put a responsible amount down on his house out of his Amazon account. How like working with less cash, like I feel like we hear on social media all the time, like you need to just like max your Amex and just like debt up to your eyeballs. And like, I think some people do actually need to hear you need to spend more money. I wouldn't say the more debt, but like you do need to spend in order to make money. But like some of these people who do that, they'll end up accepting these stupid purchases that are just like so mediocre and like actually risky because they're not understanding the way that returns affect things and like lost items affect things, and like a 15% change in the product's price changes things. And so when you have less capital, like suddenly you're like, okay, like I have 20 grand for this month. Like, what are we going to do with this? Like, we're not sending in 30% ROI products. Like that's not going to move the needle enough. Cause that's like, what is that? 6K potential profit, right? Like 20 grand, 30% ROI. I can't do math, but I think that's 6K.
Yeah, you're correct.
That's not enough. Like that's 100% not enough if you're trying to make like full-time income. So at some point you got to be like, okay, my ROI needs to get bigger, or I need to sell items faster. So like having less money, like makes you actually like think strategically about like, how am I going to run my business? And suddenly, like, I think this has been true for both you and I, like we've both gotten better at sourcing because of it. So like, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And in practice, I think at my spending peak last year, we were having months where we were spending, I think, north of 60 grand a month on products, which that was substantial. And sometimes I was uncomfortable with that, but we had the cash. And, that resulted in some really good months at the end of the year where we profited 20 to 30 grand in a month, couple months in a row. But now, after pulling a lot of cash out and being a little more cautious with how much we have invested in that business, we're spending in the like 30 grand range and profiting, 15 grand a month, which is still like really good. And some of that, is being more particular in what products you pick. Sometimes that takes a little bit more time, but it's being more strategic in how you deploy your capital. And there's seasons in everybody's business where sometimes you have more capital available and you're willing to accept a little more risk, so you just get the fastest moving products, and anything above 20% ROI or whatever. There can be times for that. But I think, like you started that comment with, definitely be really cautious if you're leveraging heavy credit. It's one thing to be doing that versus being spending your own cash.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about that a lot.
Yeah. Well, Josiah, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to get in contact with you, where's the best place to contact you?
Yeah, I'm most active on Instagram. It's at 𝗏𝗏𝗏_AK.
So we'll put that in the description so you can spell it, but it's literally bacon, like the good bacon, and then you put it on a bagel, AK.
Yes, sir.
I don't know why I felt the need to give the visual there, but thank you so much for coming on, Josiah. This is always a blast.
Thanks, Seth. Really enjoyed it.